Peace and blessings. How's everybody doing? This is Novakane Omega with Hard Knock University, and today, basically we're going to be inking this. I'm doing a children's book with the Academy, and one of the children wrote a book, and this particular panel shows a dinosaur coming out of nowhere. The dinosaur is in Asia, and the dinosaur comes out of nowhere. This is not by any means a professional inking video. This video is not for people who already know how to do professional inking. I'm a professional artist, but I'm not a professional inker, so I did want to at least throw that out there. In fact, this video is a mixed media tutorial on inking, kind of, using my style of inking, which is a mixed media type of style. So I've shaded it already. I want the final to have some pencil in it. Not only that, I'm going to put it in Photoshop afterwards and clean it up even more, but it's still going to have pencil in the final product. Basically, this is what I'm using. I drew this with number 2 pencils. I have a pink eraser, and then my pencil has erasers on it as well. If you want to get a pencil with a good eraser that doesn't leave any residue or anything on the paper, and a mechanical pencil, I'm going to be using this pen. It's called an extra fine precise pen. It's just an ink pen that you write with, but it is extra fine and it does the job that I want to do, and it's also not permanent. Then on the permanent side of things, I have your ultra fine point Sharpie. The point on this Sharpie is actually not as thin as the point on this. I'm using this for a fatter line, and this one for a skinnier line. This also has more ink flow. Then I'm using a good old standard Sharpie, fat Sharpie, for places like this on the drawing where you have a lot of black. And I'm using this. It has a ballpoint inside of it, a very small ballpoint, and it allows you to have more control when you're trying to do a darker line that's really, really thin. It doesn't bleed. Like if you hold the pen still, it won't just bleed out into the paper. Whereas if I do that with this, it's certainly gonna bleed out. When you're drawing, you know, you're gonna have a piece of paper underneath so you can catch any ink that might go through. I like to have something softer underneath to help kind of give me extra control. All right, so let's get started. You want to clean it up as you go along, and you want to have surety with your strokes. I'm just going to come in like that. I know underneath his butt and thighs and stuff, I want it to be darker lines. You know, really, this is not about the pen. If you're not confident with drawing stuff and you're scared that once you start using ink, it's so permanent that it's gonna be messed up looking, then just practice drawing stuff, quick shapes. Just get your, you know, hand control up. Doodling helps you to get hand control. And you're not gonna be perfect with it. That's why you can use rulers and stencils and stuff like that too. But if with a pen, you just kind of practice drawing quick circles, ovals or whatever, or just loosen up and treat it like it's a pencil. Then you can make confident shapes, and then that'll get you ready and get you loose for inking. Now, places where the sun is not shining as much, you want to make the lines darker because that's shading. In this drawing, my light source is kind of coming from, it's definitely coming from above, but I guess it's kind of coming from back here a little bit, maybe. So you want to consider where it's coming from, and then when you ink the final drawing, then you have an idea of where you want to go heavy. If something is in the forefront, you know, it doesn't hurt to go heavy a little bit. Or if you want to imply that light is shining, then you want to make sure that the shadow kind of reflects that. Now, one reason why I like to use this pen, aside from the fine tip of it, is that it doesn't bleed as much as the other pen. But also, I can use water and just put it on my finger, and I can use it to kind of smear that and almost do like a watercolor type of thing. When I ink over and over. You know, I'm doing a basic layer right now, and then I'm going to come back and go over it again and again and just do more and more details and do more and more darkening in certain places until it has multi-layers of depth or whatever. I'm definitely going to Photoshop this and make it look better, but I'm not going to rely on Photoshop. I hate drawing in Photoshop. When you're inking something, you are the director of the person's eye. You have control over where they focus. A tip about inking when it comes to directing focus is, you know, contrast. You want to consider where the person's eye is going to go. Obviously, the focus of this drawing is this T-Rex here. So I want him to be kind of more bold than the stuff that's in the background. One way to achieve that is with contrast, and one way to achieve that is obviously with composition and everything, but you just want to darken your lines and give him more of a dark outline than you do the rest of the drawing. Whenever you're inking something that has a circular shape, a tubular or cylindrical shape like this tail, then sometimes it helps to just go a little bit darker right down the middle of the tail to imply the shape and the contour of the tail. Also, you can use contour lines contour kinds of shading that will tell the eyeball that this object has some curve to it. Like I'll give you an example like this. You know, there's a little bit of curve to the line, so that way it tells the eye that this is a curvy shape. You know, this is his chest. He's kind of a buff. He's a fit Tyrannosaur. I've given him generous arms because Tyrannosaurs usually have very, very little arms compared to this guy. But I stylized them a little bit. Then his arms can be a little bigger than they're supposed to be. But Tyrannosaurs, I feel bad for them because I'm like, whoa, how do you even do anything? What is the purpose of your arms? I've given this dinosaur a more raptor type of, this Tyrannosaur has a more raptor type of thing going on. So yeah, we're gonna clean that up right there a little bit. I'm gonna use some whiteout right now on these teeth. You know, I load the brush up a little bit and just put it where I want it to go, and then just thin it out a little bit. And you might have to do a couple of coats of it, but that keeps it from being gloppy. It'll still take pencil or pen or whatever pretty good right there. And I can go and fix what I need to fix. Okay, while I'm waiting for that to dry a little bit more, I'll go down here and work on these feet. Now the feet are at the bottom of the page, so I'm probably gonna make them darker. So here comes the Sharpie. Now with the Sharpie, you cannot apply moisture to this Sharpie and smear it because it's a permanent marker. And again, this pen bleeds. Like if you hold it still, it'll bleed out. See what it's doing? So you don't want to hold it too long in any place unless you want that place to, you know, unless you want to use it on purpose to achieve a certain effect. But in general, you don't want to lollygag too long with this pen down because it'll just spread like that. So let's give his thighs some undergirth here, like that. Yeah, it's starting to come along. He's starting to pop right out. For the teeth, I'm going to go ahead and use the mechanical pencil to create some new teeth. So what I want to do is establish the front teeth first. Okay, so we're starting to, these are just basic outlines. Now, there's two ways you can approach foreground versus background. I mean, obviously, if something is bigger, then the eye already will automatically think it's in the foreground. I mean, if you have a plane, you know, and then you draw a little circle and you draw a big circle, I mean, the one that looks closer is probably going to be the bigger circle, especially if the circle breaks the plane like this. So there's a lot of ways you can make stuff look farther away. If it's huge and something's like that, then you make this a lot darker and more detailed, and it's just going to look closer. And then make this one be a lighter line back here, and it's just going to look farther away. Just give it a lot less detail or whatever, and make it look a little more blurry, you know what I mean? And then it just looks farther away. The crispier something is, the more the eye reads it as being closer. You want to give the eye a central focus, particularly if you're doing comics and stuff. You want to direct the eye a lot. You want to make sure that you use composition and all your techniques that you have at your disposal to make the person know what they need to be focusing on and give the eye a direction to follow as they read through that, you know, series of panels that makes up your comic book. But also you want to have an understanding of perspective and depth of field and all of that stuff. And what I'm doing here is the light is coming from the top part of my drawing, so I'm just putting like heavy shadows under here. I'm gonna take a little break and just kind of go in and erase all the excess. When you're inking, I mean, you kind of make up the reality as you go along. I mean, I did look at a photograph to kind of get the shape of these Asian buildings. I looked at some photographs and some images from Google to get an idea of what the buildings look like. But, you know, I'm gonna go and add my own design elements like this. And I do that in the inking part because I'm trusting myself enough to do it. A few more squares, make it up as we go along. And you want to give your lines a little personality too. And I'm making it fatter on the edges and then skinnier in the middle. I let it kind of come down like that and do a little bit of that dancing down there. This side of my paper looks pretty dirty to me. As I bump this up, the dinosaur is sinking into the background a little bit. So now let's go back to the dinosaur and pop him right on out. Okay, so let's do a little more with his claws. You want to have some contrast. You don't want it to just fall flat because everything is the same tone. And I built in some more background in the back of this. Here I added like a celestial body. I guess it's the sun, I don't know. I'm gonna go ahead and say it's the sun. It could be the moon for fun, but I haven't decided that yet. The knee, the tone of the knee, is pretty much the same as the tone of this silhouette of this background building here. So what I want to do to pop this knee out and set this more in the background and make it more obvious that it's in the background is we're going to go ahead and smear all this together like that. And then let me get an eraser with a little bit of edge to it. I'm going to do that right there. And that's going to lighten it and give it a automatic pop just right from the beginning. You know, and this is his knee kind of like that. Let me clean that up a little bit. So, okay, so then we're gonna add a ridge kind of thing there to really give it a popping, you know, to give it some shape and form. Continue that right down into the shin. You can use the shape of a shadow to indicate the shape of a form, of a muscle, or whatever you have it. It doesn't have to just be lines, but you can use shadow regions to make the appearance of something being 3D and something facing in a certain direction. Already, that gave this whole thing a lot more depth and personality. And then out here, I'm gonna darken the shadow right here, like that. And a good tool is the squinting tool. You can use your eyes to squint and look at your drawing, look at it from far away and squint at it, and it'll tell you if the contrast or the composition or whatever is lacking. It's easier to see something if you just squint at it, and it'll give you an idea of where light is falling and where it needs to fall and where it needs to fall at less. And you can go and make adjustments from there. And put a little shadow under there a little bit and float that. Okay, so good. Now we can go even darker in some places and make it more detailed like that, and make it more bumpy, and you know, because like I said, he's a dinosaur and we want him to look, you know, rough. So I would say now that this dinosaur pops out a lot more than he just did, especially in this region. My eye, when I squint, and even when I don't squint, you know, can clearly delineate this part from this part. So that's what we wanted to do with that shading, in addition to just adding flavor to the drawing. What I like to do when I ink pages is ink them up to this level. Like I ink them to where I'm like 85% done, and then I go back. I like to do a little audio engineering. Sometimes when you're mixing music, you can run into this problem where you've been listening to the music too long and your ear starts to get kind of out of touch, and you need to go home and go to sleep or lay down and then wake up the next day and revisit it with a fresh set of ears, you know? So it's the same way with drawing. You know, some days I can draw long and some days I can't draw that long, you know? Sometimes you just want to draw what your heart is telling you to draw, and then if it's beyond that, then leave it alone, because you can overdraw something. You can overdo something and you can underdo it. So as you can see, we're getting somewhere now. I'm giving this blurb some life. He's jumping out at us. Anyway, we're gonna just slowly come in and just add little shading, and we can just imply some little veins like that. You know, a big nasty roar might be coming out of his mouth in a few seconds. So I'm getting near to the point where I think I'm gonna let it rest. When I draw something, especially when I ink it, it's never perfect to me. I never quite feel like I'm finished, but you have to just decide when you're going to be done, and then you're done. So okay, so he's popping. I want to make his head pop out a lot more. So I'm going to really put a lot more ink on his head right now, and just make it more on purpose, more developed. And just a few techniques. There's this way to ink. I mean, not ink, shading with ink, I'll say, where you just kind of, you know, do that and then just pop these lines out some. This is hatching and cross hatching. Then there's pointillism, where you can take a square or something and then use points, dots, to imply shadow. And obviously you concentrate the dots where you want there to be more shadow, and then you make them more sparse where you want there to be less. It's painstaking, but it's a technique that you can use when it's necessary. Then there's just flat, like one tone shading. You just take one tone and just bring it across something. It's kind of all one color or whatever, you know, kind of like that. And then you can come and do the edges once again. But knowing how how to use line to make shadow is where you're going to have your greatest successes when it comes to using pen, which is not as easily smeared, obviously, as pencil. So if you're going to design a page, then you want to learn how to capture the essence of a figure in just a few strokes. You're just trying to get a general feeling for how something is. Then when you draw something, you should always draw that way. You should just draw with the way something is shaped and the way something feels in mind, as opposed to every little detail about the eyeball or the ear or whatever. All that stuff is just made out of shapes and light. So it's not hard to do these things, but you want to get the general gist of what's going on in a picture. These are just little things you can do. So those are my tips. Novakane Omega, Hard Knock University. You know, if you got any questions, post them. Don't forget to subscribe. Peace.